60% of those that are imprisoned. The prison population grew by 700% from 1970 to 2005, a rate that is outpacing crime and population rates. The incarceration rates disproportionately impact men of color. 1 in every 15 African American men and 1 in every 36 Hispanic men are incarcerated in comparison to 1 in every 106 white men. So for every 1 of every 15 African American men are incarcerated. That's a fucking lot. 1 out of every 36 Hispanic men are incarcerated, and 1 out of every 106 white men are incarcerated. So that's a really startling statistic. Number 2 of 10, according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 1 in 3 black men can expect to go to prison in their lifetime. Individuals of color have a disproportionate number of encounters with law enforcement, indicating that racial profiling continues to be a problem. A report by the Department of Justice found that blacks and Hispanics were approximately 3 times more likely to be searched during a traffic stop than white motorists. African Americans were twice as likely to be arrested and almost 4 times as likely to experience the use of force during encounters with the police. Number 3, students of color face harsher punishments in school than their white peers, leading to a higher number of youth of color incarcerated. Black and Hispanic students represent more than 70% of those involved in school-related arrests or referrals to law enforcement. Currently, African Americans make up 2/5 and Hispanics 1/5 of confined youth today. Number 4, according to recent data by the Department of Education, African American students are arrested far more than their white classmates. The data showed that 96,000 students were arrested and 242,000 referred to law enforcement by schools during the 2009 to 2010 school year. Of those students, black and Hispanic students made up more than 70% of arrested or referred students. Harsh school punishments, from suspensions to arrests, have led to high numbers of youth of color coming into contact with the juvenile justice system at an earlier age. Number 5 of 10. African American youth have a higher rate of juvenile incarceration and are more likely to be sentenced to adult prison. According to the Sentencing Project, even though African American juvenile youth are about 16% of the youth population, 37% of their cases are moved to criminal court, and 58% of African American youth are sent to adult prisons. That's horrible. Number 6 of 10, as the number of women incarcerated has increased by 800% over the last 3 decades, women of color have been disproportionately represented. While the number of women incarcerated is relatively low, the racial and ethnic disparities are startling. African American women are 3 times more likely than white women to be incarcerated, while Hispanic women are 69% more likely than white women to be incarcerated. Number 7, the war on drugs has been waged primarily in communities of color, where people of color are more likely to receive higher offenses. According to the Human Rights Watch, people of color are no more likely to use or sell illegal drugs than whites, but they have higher rates of arrests. African Americans comprise 14% of regular drug users, but are 37% of those arrested for drug offenses. From 1980 to 2007, about 1 in 3 of the 25.4 million adults arrested for drugs were African American. Number 8 of 10, just 3 more people. Once convicted, black offenders receive longer sentences compared to white offenders. The U.S. Sentencing Commission stated that in the federal system, black offenders receive sentences that are 10% longer than white offenders for the same crimes. The Sentencing Project reports that African Americans are 21% more likely to receive mandatory minimum sentences than white defendants and are 20% more likely to be sentenced to prison. Number 9, voter laws that prohibit people with felony convictions to vote disproportionately impact men of color. An estimated 5.3 million Americans are denied the right to vote based on past felony conviction. Felony disenfranchisement is exaggerated by racial disparities in this criminal justice system, ultimately denying 13% of African American men the right to vote. Felony disenfranchisement policies have led to 11 states denying the right to vote to more than 10% of their African American population. And then the last one is number 10, says studies have shown that people of color face disparities in wage trajectory following release from prison. Evidence shows that spending time in prison affects wage trajectories with a disproportionate impact on black men and women. The results show no evidence of racial divergence in wages prior to incarceration. However, following release from prison, wages grow at a 21% slower rate for black former inmates compared to white ex-convicts. A number of states have bans on people with certain convictions working in domestic health service industries such as nursing, childcare, and home health care, areas in which many poor women and women of color are disproportionately concentrated. So, that was a lot of facts. Sorry, but I had to read all of those because I wanted to illustrate to you how completely lopsided and how completely how much inequity there is when it comes to race in the justice system for people of color, whether you're black, Hispanic, or whatever. And it is unfortunate that people think that, because of these statistics, because people are using race to determine someone's worth or someone's value or whether someone's going to be a reoffender or whatever. They're using race, whether they say that's what they're doing or not, but it's obvious by these statistics that's what they're doing. You're disproportionately harming black people or Hispanic people far more than you're harming Caucasians. So it's obvious that there's racism still prevalent today when it comes to our justice system. Oh, we've got a caller. Let's see what they have to say. Make sure I've got this set up right here. You're on the Offlimits Show. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's your name?
I'm Ken Bongle.
How's it going, Ken?
It's good. How's it? I hear you talking, but oh, there you are. I'm on a delay. So sorry. I sound like an idiot. Okay. So the reason I waited so long to call in is because my thing is that I'm not racist, and my thing is that I don't see racial inequality because I am white, and also because it's just not something that I see. It's not something that I experience in my town. People of color all around me, and we're all treated equally in my perspective. And yeah, it's lopsided as I am Caucasian. But I think that a lot of people, especially in my age range, they don't see racial inequality the way that others see it. The people who are older than us and people who are, do you know what I mean? Like it's not like.
Well, what's your age range?
Well, I'm 30.
Okay, you're 30. Okay,
30. Yeah. Right. So I mean, but to me, I don't really see it, and I want to move beyond it because I understand that there really is no basis for it.
Well, where do you live?
You know what I mean? Like, well, I live in Kentucky.
Okay. And so in your Kentucky town, are you living in a large town or small town?
I'm somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
Second largest city in the state, yeah.
Okay. So in your town, how many would you say, percentage-wise, of your town is black or Hispanic? Just generally, just off the top of your head.
I would say something to the effect of probably the Caucasian, like solely Caucasian, purely Caucasian is a minority in my town.
Okay. Well, that's one reason you probably don't see a huge issue because
I don't. Yeah.
It's more diverse. Your town is very diverse, and so the ruling quote unquote ruling race, if you want to put it that way, is not one or the other. It seems like it's pretty evenly spread, or it's pretty easily spread out among the races there, it seems. So that's probably one reason you don't see it so much. But I'm sure, have you ever left Kentucky or not?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been all over the world, but It's like I spent some time in the Middle East, and then I've been all over the country. But what is it? 5 by 5 says, unless you live in Louisville or Lexington, it can be rough. That's totally true, but there's so much hatred in the world. As long as people feel the desire to be better than someone else, there will always be inequality. There will always be inequality, and it's a socioeconomic and a geographical thing, I believe, because the further south you get, the worse it tends to become. But those people hate everybody.
Well, the thing is, but the thing is that I mean, like you yourself said when you first called, it's that just because you don't see it, because you haven't experienced it yourself, because you haven't really had a reason to experience, you yourself are not a racial minority, and you're in a town where you have quite apparently abundant amount of diversity. And so it's not really something that you've necessarily experienced. And even if you go outside of your town, you yourself are not going to experience racism because you're Caucasian male, and you fortunate, even though you're gay. I assume you're gay, right?
Yeah.
I know. I'm just kidding. I know.
Okay.
But I'm saying, I know. I'm just joking. No, but it's because you're gay. I mean, even though you're gay, but you're a white Caucasian male. And so you really have it really good in this world because you are at the apex of it, besides the fact that you're gay, I mean, in terms of racism or discrimination, outside of the gay thing, I mean. So because you're not, so you see what I'm saying, in terms of racism, you don't understand it, or it's not that you don't understand necessarily, but you don't experience it, so you can't really necessarily see it because you don't know what it's like to be discriminated against.
Exactly, but I think that's at the basis of the entire conversation, is that perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
It's where you come from. It's the perspective that you have of your genetic makeup and your racial background. So, to me, there is little to no racial equality because that is my reality.
There is little or no racial equality or inequality.
Inequality. Yeah. Like, I live in a really great zip code, and most of my neighbors are Indian.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that they don't actively go forward in building relationships. So I tend to go out of my way to cultivate these relationships. Like, I'm always waving. In the last 2 years that they've begun to wave back at me. And then we have, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But also here we have people are obsessed with basketball, and nearly every player on our college basketball team
mm-hmm.
is African American.
Mm-hmm.
So people who are African American are treated somewhat like celebrities here because we see them more often and we cheer for them more often, and we I don't know, we just always equate them with Oprah, Obama,
mm-hmm.
and basketball.
One of the things I was saying at the beginning of the show, I understand what you're saying, but that is also, in terms of society as a whole, can be a bad thing, because if all people see black people, for example, as are athletes or entertainers, whether they're wealthy or not, or as thugs on the other end of the spectrum, and they never really see them in the middle, just regular normal people, everyday people, it still kind of creates a separation, because then people can't really identify with them, because they can't identify with somebody who's a bazillionaire, entertainer or basketball player, and they can't identify with somebody who's a criminal who's selling drugs on the streets. So what I'm trying to say is, I understand what you're saying, but I think it's more important that the everyday average person lives next door to you that is black or Indian, like you said, or Hispanic or whatever, so people can really get to know them and understand them, that they are really the same. Do you see my point or not?
Yeah, I totally see the point that you're making, but for me, I never even started that way. Like, for me, growing up, and I'm from a really, really small place. I'm from a place called Hippo Holler, for crying out loud. Like, they don't have paved roads. We ran barefoot and had pet roosters and picked berries and, play. You know what I mean? But mm-hmm. It was never a moment where I ever thought, I never looked at someone and thought, well, what an N-word, or right. What a thug, or this, that, or the other. I've never been that way, and none of my friends are that way. And I have a multitude of people who are mixed race, mm-hmm. and a multitude of friends who are Caucasian, who have married or have children with African Americans, mm-hmm. Hispanics, either. We're all like, it has to be over, because you're married to a black man, you have 4 kids by a Hispanic gentleman, and, I go and I pray in a room full of Asians once. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see that, and they don't see that. And so for me, racial inequality doesn't really...
Yeah, but the problem is that you're looking at it from a strictly social standpoint, and your society that you're around, the society you're in, apparently is quite well evolved to some degree about race, to some degree, in terms of integration, in terms of social, the social aspect of it. But when it comes to jobs, employment, when it comes to going outside of your town, possibly when it comes to being recognized in terms of the justice system, if these certain people who are, say, for example, black, and they were your friend